The unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Okay. As we are coming out of we hope, the peak of the pandemic, I feel that we are not the same people that we went into the pandemic. We have definitely changed. And I feel like for myself, my expectations, my assumptions and entitlements are not the same as they were before. So, I'm going to start with a story. It's kind of a silly story, but I think it makes a good point. It's about a playground. When I was a kid, one of my joys was going to the playground. You know, we used to call it a jungle gym. And for some reason, I really liked to go there. Wherever I was, it seems like there was always a jungle gym to go to. Different things to play with, play on. Climbing, sliding, rotating merry-go-rounds, all kinds of stuff. So my story is about somebody who's on the edge of this playground, and they're going to walk into the playground with the thought of getting to the other side. However, in the middle, that is obstructing them is the jungle gym. So what they have to do is they go into the playground and see that first of all they got to climb the stairs and go down a slide. So they climb the stairs, go down a slide, and then they end up someplace they didn't want to end up. So they're still trying to get on the other side. So they see that what's in between them and the other side is a merry-go-round. So they need to get on the merry-go-round that goes around and around and it's going around fast enough that they have to leap onto it, go around, and then jump off at the right times, and it's from going at an accelerated pace. I don't know if any of you remember this. And then you got to jump off, and you're at stationary ground, and there you are. And you got to be really skillful with this, but you want to end up so that you can get to the other side of the playground. However, there's a great big puddle there from the grass sprinklers. They've been sprinkling like they do, the garden sprinklers, and they kind of missed the grass and hit the playground. So there's a big puddle there. However, over the puddle is this part of the jungle gym. So you have to climb up a couple of steps. It's metal, and then there's a horizontal ladder. I couldn't remember the name of that thing. So what you have to do is hand over hand, make your way, swing across the puddle. So you do that, hopefully you remember how, and don't lose your grip and fall down. But you make your way all the way across, and then you turn around, go down the steps, and lo and behold, you're on the other side. So you've been through kind of a lot, and you can't really say that it was a direct route going from one place to the other. You got to the other side, but there you are. You've gone through all this stuff just to make a simple journey. But there you are, and then you say, okay, what do I do next? Okay, this is where our training comes in. It's a good idea to pause before running off. And what we can do in this spot, this is a good moment. You've been through a lot. We've been through a lot with the pandemic. It's a good time to take stock of where we are, and we can sit still. I found a really good paragraph from Zen is Eternal Life that Reverend Master Jiyu wrote that I'd like to read to you about this very thing, about tapping into the stillness. So here we are standing at the playground, kind of frazzled, wondering what to do next, and just all kinds of stuff is happening or not So we're going to pause. She says, forget the selfish self for a little, and allow the mind to remain natural, for this is very close to the mind that seeks the way of Buddhism. Self is the basis for many private opinions. If we hold on too tightly, oops, sorry, did I mess things up? It will cause suffering for ourselves and others. So when we are becoming full of our own opinions, just sit quietly and watch how they arise. On what are they based, both within you and outside of you? If you look, you will see that the thoughts are empty, and within this view, there is no ego or the mind that is fettered with discrimination, knowledge, and duality of thoughts that bind us. So the stillness can actually become a skill. And when we're in these situations in daily life, you actually have the opportunity, especially if you've gone through a lot. I feel like that jungle gym would be a lot to process, but there's just a point where you just kind of don't know where you are, what to do, and it's a good point to be at, because then you can say, oh, I could sit still for a little bit and find out what's good to do next. So to carry on with this idea, maybe make it a little more sophisticated, is a poem by Wendell Berry. I think some of you know he's a poet, a well-known poet. He wrote a poem called Our Real Work. So here we are at the edge of the playground again, wondering what to do. This is the poem. It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And that when we no longer know which way to go, we have come to our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. I'll explain that. The impeded stream is one that sings. Nice poem, huh? And I like the poem a lot. I've been reading it over and over again. One of our lay friends introduced me to it. But the poem, the last line, second to the last line, says, the mind that is not baffled is not employed. Well, I was baffled by that, So I've been sitting with that, and I'm thinking about this person on the side of the end of the playground, thinking, okay, what does that mean, the mind is not baffled? And what I have come up with is you've got that moment of stillness. The mind isn't cluttered with opinions at that point yet. There's just a break in that time. And that means that you are more open to what's good to do next, rather than just getting into the mechanical, routine, habitual, going ahead of ourselves. So in other words, it's a moment of being in the present. This impeded stream is one that sings. I like that a lot. So what would it be like without the rocks or, the impeded obstructions? Well, I don't know. I think that we need the obstructions kind of to know who we are and where we stand in the world. And I just wonder if anybody that would go through that jungle gym quite in that way would even enjoy it. The rocks, right? The truth is really that we aren't the rocks. We are the stream. But we have to look at that with our own training long enough to see that the rocks do not need to impede us, they can help us. They are actually a gift for us to work with the rocks and become the stream more and more. And then we can sing. I found something in Dogen that was helpful in this light, in the Shobogenzo. Because things are as they are, rocks and stream, we learn the way by running barefoot, and we learn the way by doing somersaults. In other words, what is that saying? That we don't avoid the rocks, but we kind of make our way, running barefoot and doing somersaults. And the footnote on that is being willing to stumble, stepping on all manner of things, and willing to be tossed head over heels, physically, mentally, and spiritually. In other words, not turning away from things that we see or imagine are obstacles, but to allow them to actually allow ourselves to get into the rock tumbler and be tumbled around with the faith that perhaps this isn't a bad thing. I challenge us all to test this out, because it's something somebody can say, but to actually experience it is a joy, one of the joys of life, actually. Right. And part of our problems, I think, and Buddhism substantiates or supports this idea, is that we have a kind of tight grip on our thoughts and feelings, as if we let go of them, something awful's going to happen. And that's actually is the cause of our suffering for ourselves and others. And here's another story. I like stories. This is one I believe that I found from Reverend Master Jiu's writings, or somebody told me, but I can't remember. I couldn't find it. It's a simple story, but it makes a good point. So a woman is driving a car, and she comes to a stop sign, a signal. And she's got her child in the back seat, and she's strapped in. And this woman is aware that she needs to be alert and not to really engage in a lot of mind chatter or going elsewhere. She just feels like her responsibility to that child is really important. So she's not doing anything heroic in a way. She's simply very mindful of what the situation is. And it's not like there's a big dangerous threat or anything like that. But she just happens to look over to the car next to her, and there's another woman sitting in that car, but this woman's doing something very different. She's eating, she's chatting on the phone, she's waiting for the signal to turn green. She's very occupied with things, and she's not the same kind of energy that this other woman is into. And I just feel like the difference in the woman with the child, something in that situation, probably the safety of her child, has gotten her attention in the moment. In other words, she needs to do what needs to be done next, and that is to do say something very safe. Whereas this other woman that's eating and doing all this stuff, if any kind of situation arose, I don't know that she would have the time to put down her sandwich, to say goodbye to her friend, put that down, and then address the situation. So I just feel like that we spend a lot of time with this churning idea of really occupying ourselves, maybe a little bit too much. And this talk is not meant for us to become totally without thoughts or feelings, but just to loosen the grip a little bit, to let our selfishness kind of just become go, to become more like the stream rather than the rocks. I think we identify too much with the rocks. Now I feel it's a bit of a stretch, but I have found it true that the things that become obstructions can be a gift. And I say that because I have found that's true for myself, and it's a skill that I'm learning about, that I want to learn to open to in my own life. And I feel like the gift of reacting, reacting is what I'm really good at, but reflecting on what's good to do is something that I want to, something that is good, as in responding is a good thing that to cultivate. And that's where the gift comes in, because it gives me, like the person standing on the edge of the playground, a moment of pause, taking a breath or whatever, and seeing what is good to do. That is a gift. It is a gift. It gives us a little bit of space between who we habitually react and respond, or act on, and a way to respond that is more in keeping with what is good to do in the next moment. What is it that's good? In thinking about developing a practice, it is not a one-time event. So the person on the edge of the playground, he may or she may just decide at that one moment to do something that is good to do, to step back. But actually, what happens to make this really work as a practice, it has to be something that becomes familiar. In other words, we practice it, we get accustomed to doing this, to practicing the way so much that it becomes usual. In other words, we just get so familiar with it that we can actually become more familiar with it, and it can become much more part of our lives, not in an exceptionally wonderful way, but just kind of normal routine stuff. So we just have to keep at it to become familiar with it, not be afraid of it, trust in it, have faith, all those good things. So I'm going to read another poem from Dogen's Shobogenzo, and this is this. The leaves of a lotus are round in their roundness. In other words, they are as they are. And their roundness resembles a mirror. In other words, the mirror can be some way that we could look at ourselves as we are, not laying anything over that. The spines of a water chestnut are sharp in their sharpness, and their sharpness resembles an awl. In other words, we have that opportunity once again to see a rock or something that's sharp, or something that we think we know what it is, and we have a way of looking at it in a different way. We have that choice. It's up to us. So I'm going to end with this. Life can be difficult. I think we all know that. And that being said, we have the gift of making difficulties in enrichment of our lives. Thank you.